Hello, and welcome to the Don't Shop on Tuesday Zoom chat. We're your hosts, Jacob Kravetz and Barrie Friedland, and today we're once again joined by activist extraordinaire Charlie Cooper, who has worked for a long time on protecting election integrity, primarily through his work as the head of Get Money Out Maryland, which worked to overturn Citizens United and bring public funding to elections. So he's been in the space of election integrity and making sure that we have a representative democracy through our voting system for years now. Thank you so much for joining us, Charlie.
Well, you're very welcome, and thank you for the work you're doing. And I'd say we're recording this on the eve of the
Hmm.
most dangerous day since the Cuban Missile Crisis. And I've been immersed for a month in trying to understand what's going on with Israel and the U.S. and Iran and the Gulf states. But tonight, I think we need to step back and look at the big picture in the United States and what we as activists can be doing. Uh, and so the first thing I wanted to talk about is why fascism has won so far. Um,
Or at least is winning. Yeah,
well, they've
the struggle
won.
continues.
It doesn't mean, the fact that they've won doesn't mean that they will continue in power.
Hmm.
Um, the New Deal won, the labor unions won, and then they lost it. But we are in a 5 decade feedback loop where economic inequality feeds the ability of very rich people to buy policies from both political parties.
It's something that we
So
talk
the new
about, every week. Yeah.
Right, the new billionaire friendly policies make them even richer. That makes it even easier to buy more new policies and increase the inequality further. So the wealth and income inequality have uh, just been ratcheting up and squeezing the necks of the rest of us uh, for quite a while, and it continues to get worse and worse. Families and individuals are under stress. It's not just physical stress, but it's psychological stress because they see that they can't live a lifestyle that their parents live or that is displayed all around them on media. Uh, and the billionaires have won lower taxes, deunionization, privatization, monopoly powers, and the cherry on top is Citizens United. So when they won Citizens United and the ability to spend unlimited amounts on elections, then it made their task even easier. Um, and they can make fake corporations and funnel money through there and keep the money secret. Although, of course, in the end, they don't exactly want to keep the money secret from the politicians because they want the politicians to know they've been bought. Uh, and an unknown or little acknowledged facet of this money in politics business is that with corporate profits being 3 trillion a year or 6 trillion in 2 years, and a presidential election cycle costing about $20 billion. I can't, 20 billion over 6 trillion is a very, very, very small number. It's like a third of a percent or something. So the point being, it's cheap for them. When the Yass family spends $100 million, or Musk spends 275, or Miriam Adelson gets up off of 135 million. It's like you wrote a check for 15, $20. Um,
Yeah.
and so now,
And it is
go ahead.
continue, Charlie. Sorry.
Ah, now we're seeing a ratcheting up of overt corruption. So the whole campaign finance world is overt corruption. And now that they've seen that everybody accepts that, uh, I mean, no one agrees with it, but they, what are
Accept
they
it as
going
a
to do
fact
about
of
it? Right.
politics. Yeah.
In the present environment, what are we going to do about it? So now Trump has just gone on to overt other kinds of corruption where Qatar gives him a $400 million airplane and UAE buys $2 billion of his fake cryptocurrency where he gets a big commission on that. I mean, it's a little commission in terms of percent, but a small percentage of $2 billion is okay to have. And then Musk and Bezos and Thiel and Ellison and all those characters are paying for his so-called ballroom and his library and yada yada. And then the third factor, so we have this feedback loop of money in politics. We now have overt corruption. Uh, but Trump is a genius at connecting with those people that have a craving for authority and the one right answer. It used to be an unchanging right answer. Trump has now found that he can change the answer a whole lot of times, and a lot of these people will continue to follow him.
In mid
However,
Early in mid sentence.
right,
I know.
mid-syllable, right. But now we may be starting to see cracks with Epstein and the amazingly, exceedingly, historically unpopular Iran war. So we haven't, we went
Illegal
through
Iran
Iraq, which
war.
was a completely ridiculous, made up war about lies, and people supported it for quite a while. Uh,
But I mean, that was in part because there's at least some efforts to sell things. I mean, I don't understand why, people necessarily bought it, but no one was even attempted to sell. We were never even no the sort of the interesting thing about this sort of new evolution is there's been the a lot of people sort of putting on airs for a long time of pretending to have to have public support or pretending to
yeah.
that they cared about these sorts of norms, and while hollowing out the actual practice of any of those. And now we've just seen the mask ripped off, and no effort to even sell any of this, no effort to even justify
Well, there
anything
is an
beyond
effort
we
to
can.
sell it. I somewhat disagree with that. They're not selling it in a way that you or I or probably the people who view uh, this discussion would buy, but they are selling it with memes and real bombings interspersed with Marvel comics episodes and not episodes but vignettes. Um, So anyway,
But
nobody buying it. That's for sure.
Charlie, the timeline has collapsed. Bush and Cheney spent months and months
Yes.
tying the Iraq War to 9/11,
Hmm.
talking about, I mean, they had a lot of, they talked about oil, they talked about democracy, but they didn't wake up one morning and bomb them. I mean, they're, so now it's almost like they're trying to sell it after the fact. Um, he,
Right.
he, he campaigned on no more wars, no war, specifically no war with Iran. So it's
Right.
so so I think it's harder to sell after the fact. When oh, here we've done this, it's horrible, we're losing, but let's show you this TikTok rather than what went into Vietnam, what went into Iraq, what went into Afghanistan was just months and years of propaganda.
So the appeal to anti-communism and the appeal to anti-Muslim and anti-Arab feelings, although I understand that Iran is an Arab, but I'm not sure that the audience always understands that kind of a distinction. Um, there is some attempt to sell it in a way, but certainly less. And Trump, another aspect of Trump is that he in this second term. He just waves away every constitutional check and balance. And the Republican, with the exception of the Epstein thing, the Republican House and Senate just go right along with him. So, but anyway, uh, I guess if we're going to digress on the Iran war for one more point, it's possible that his real motivation is to drive up oil prices and try to get some of the money into his own pocket. Because there's going to be a lot of money flow. The people who continue to have oil, and we just got Venezuela's oil. Um, and so maybe he thinks it's just great that the oil prices are going up. But then, 10 minutes later, he's demanding that the strait be open. So who knows? Uh, so the last factor I just wanted to mention about why fascism won is that media control has been consolidating and the media are deteriorating. Um, 20 years ago, it was the New York Times swallowing the Iraq story whole and other instances like that. But now you actually have, this Ellison guy buying up everything. TikTok, CBS, CNN, and more,
Well, you
you know.
see this as sort of following a lot of the Viktor Orban Hungarian sort of illiberalization of democracy strategy here, where his own right-wing billionaire allies bought up most of the media,
Uh-huh.
corporations.
Yeah, I haven't been
And in
following.
fact, JD Vance is right now in
Yeah,
Hungary,
right. Campaigning for
campaigning for
Orban.
Orban to tell
Hmm.
you about how much they're communicating
It's
and
a good
care
thing
about
that's
these
not
sorts of
interfering in
projects.
another country's election. All right. So, what I want to talk about next is so fascism has won for now. We have to have a
So
vision.
can we pause for one more moment here in terms of fascism as
Yeah,
one for now. Um, I guess where along the line of this, and perhaps it's a distinction without, but like as we've been talking, this is a many decade project,
yeah.
that has become more and more overt, but the DNA of the project seems largely unchanged since the Powell memo and the 1970s.
Mhm.
So where along the way, because Reagan obviously won on this sort of thing as well. So maybe the institutions were stronger, right? And so we couldn't be as overt, but and so it's just all a process. But where do you think this sort of tips from various other types of oligarchy or oligopoly, or into fascistic type, regimes as the useful way of describing it?
I mean, I have to say, I did not feel this way in Trump won. I certainly disliked Trump. I disliked his policies. I considered him, a horrible racist and um, a chauvinist on so many issues. Um, but this time, when he came in with the 2020 Project 2025 and all the executive orders and much more overt um, flouting of the other branch's power, he, I mean, he rants about the Supreme Court like they were, SDS or something. Um,
Yeah.
and they're certainly a very far right court. Three of did he appoint three of them? And then
Yeah.
uh, the impoundment to me is a very very big deal. If
I
and
mean,
the,
he was doing that. I mean, all of these, again, it's like seeds of a minor thing where they just keep testing. It's like avoid these beginnings to prevent these ends.
Mhm.
Um, we've seen constantly this sort of the pushing of the unitary executive throughout the Bush
Right,
administration, and then
right.
because this is a one-way political ratchet as well. As part of the problem is that the Democrats whenever they restabilize potentially from the downward slide, but they never really reverse any of
Right.
the
They want to use all those
institutional decay.
executive powers, except
Yeah.
that they use them to reward Wall Street and big pharma, and not the working person generally.
Going
Yeah.
back to your mission of getting money out of politics, it would help us with both parties. But I still say it goes back to Reagan. We found out after the fact that he won via treason. That has been verified, that he had a deal with Iran to keep
Hmm.
the hostages. And then he came in with the whole uh, just just lauding wealth and greed and putting people in charge of departments that wanted to destroy that mission, to putting anti-environmentalists in charge of EPA and things of that nature. And and since then it's just gotten more solidified and more solidified. And I've done political strategy, and I didn't see that. I mean, I knew it would be bad, but I didn't know it'd be this bad. And
Right.
I did,
I would agree with that. I didn't, you know, when
Yeah.
Trump got reelected, I didn't know how bad it would be. But it's very, very bad, and I think
Indeed.
the primary way, first of all, I there's no politician going to come save us. Not, if we could clone Bernie Sanders and make him exactly Jack Kennedy's age, that wouldn't save us without a lot of organizing and grassroots action. Zoran Mamdani got elected with 100,000 citizen volunteers that knocked on doors and made phone calls and licked envelopes. That's what we need. If you take, you know, whatever New York City is and multiply it by 50,
Hmm.
we need 5 million people doing that. Um, so, so they need to be doing that with a vision of the future.
Agreed.
Um, and so, of course, one of those visions is to get rid of big money in politics and have public campaign finance, at least as an alternative. But I want to lay out about 6 or 8 points here. Uh, we have to have progressive taxes, including wealth taxes. You pay wealth taxes. If you own a house, you pay wealth tax. If you rent a house, then the landlord pays a wealth tax, right? But if you own $350 billion worth of stock, you don't pay any wealth tax. That's
Hmm.
stupid. You got to get rid of that. Um, and that is, according to Saez and Piketty, and who've been studying inequality in a very, very systematic way for decades and have uh, all the data at their disposal. That is how we ended the robber baron era and went into a much more equal New Deal era. It wasn't just in the US, it was around the world. It was really more successful in Europe than here. Um, we need Medicare for all. We have to stop wasting about $2 trillion a year, and that's a minimal figure on our so-called healthcare system compared to other rich nations, and invest that money in actually, you know, human development. Um,
Hmm.
because it's not just that private insurance is taking out a profit and wasting money on paperwork. Um, there's so much more to it that
Hmm.
you can't waste 2 trillion that way. You can maybe waste 3/4 of a trillion or something. So we have a lot to do, and Medicare for all would be in a very, very big and important first step. We absolutely have to have a Green New Deal where the government leads us to a sustainable energy future, and it means building a lot of stuff. You know,
I
we
know.
have we
The
have to build
the
the
whole war in
electric
Iran
grid,
is.
right? Go
I was
ahead.
just saying the both the war in Iran and then prior to that, obviously the huge AI, the advent of AI and all these data centers were really are were emphasizing one, the AI is emphasizing that we really needed to update our grid, a
Right,
decade ago.
right,
But then what gets talked about so infrequently within, these war conflicts is the level of environmental damage, right? And the continued investment of good money after bad
right.
into these petrochemical, this entire petrochemical system, which is, just accelerating a, sort of suicide pact altogether.
So they're debating energy bills in the Maryland General Assembly now. It looks to me like the House has a slightly more progressive version than the Senate. Uh, but I was just reading an article today where the Senate is leaving in place a system of projecting future costs and giving the utilities increases based on that. In my own community, we had 100 homes built about 10 or 15 years after we moved in here. In one big development, 100 new homes, um, and they put in gas lines. So that was like 30, 35 years ago. 3 or 4 years ago, they came through, dug up all the streets, and put in brand new gas lines. Now, there's just no effing way that new gas lines were needed. And we shouldn't be putting in any gas lines.
Yeah,
There should be no gas lines. Okay.
yeah,
That should be
absolute,
banned. So it's not only, I
absolute
mean,
agreement rather than, but
it's,
our city, I mean, our city has a constant, our city and state has a constant issue here with, you know, even when we make some level of progress around proposing green energy, what exactly gets defined as green or renewable energy? Everyone's constantly trying to slip in various types of combustion, like paper combustion and recycling. So it is a constant struggle, but we do need a whole infrastructure scale.
mhm.
Really from first principles, not nibbling around the edges here. Um, our weather's
All right.
going
So
nuts.
closely related to all this is we need to end imperialism in the petrodollar world trade system. And
Well,
that
they're taking care of that one. So
Yeah.
well,
And that's
maybe
that
maybe
one, that one may be the easiest one to deal with in the end here.
the US is about 8 trillion in debt. I didn't check the 8 trillion figure today, but the Brown University Cost of War project has projected all the costs of the Iraq and Afghanistan wars, including taking care of the injured veterans. Uh, and it comes
The
to
eight
in the
trillion
neighborhood
dollars.
of $8 trillion. That's
Yeah,
basically just dumped onto the end of the national debt. Um, but now Trump is spending $2 billion a day, which, if it continued for a year, I don't think that's going to happen. But if it continued for a year, that would be $750 billion right there. Uh,
and
and
I would say I don't think that
I
that's a
think in
good
Trump's mind,
estimate. Like
this,
that's way underestimate, right? There's no way this war is costing more than 2 billion, 2 billion a
a
day.
day.
I would say yes. Like given all the other, that's like an actual material spent, not even like moving all these strike groups around, it's just I think that why would we believe them when they said this is an underestimate, I feel like,
Well,
of
this
what
was
it's
an
costing.
independent assessment,
Yeah.
and I'm afraid
Anyway.
I can't tell you. I think I got it from Breaking Points, one of my
Hmm.
go-to, my
Yeah.
only
Yeah.
my only podcast, really. Okay.
your
Uh,
only podcast. What about DSOT
This-
chats? I'm kidding. Go ahead.
okay. You're not there every day.
I know. We yeah, these points are important. But we also want to talk about fighting, and so uh, uh, let's lay out the points and let's then talk because we like to leave.
Yeah, okay, right. So anyway, so now he's asking for 200 billion for that war and a general 500 billion dollar annual increase for the what he would call the war budget and I would call the war budget. And he wants to cut child care and other social programs for 100 billion, and then just let the other 400 billion go on to the national debt. I also think we need to drastically reform the UN Security Council. I mean, it's ridiculous to have a world where there's 1.4 billion people in India, and but France has a veto in the Security Council.
Well, again, I do think that one of the fallouts of what is happening globally may be a re-examining of a lot of
Right.
these things. So you may be getting your wish, not quite the
I
path
hope
that you
there
would hope
is an Earth left
to,
to
to do it. Yeah,
a human population. There'll be an Earth, that's for sure. Whether there'll be a human civilization that can have a world forum, that's not as clear. We need to enforce the antitrust laws, make a level playing field for unions, and come up with a regulatory scheme for AI because in the hands of its oligarchic owners, it threatens the 99% in ways we it's hard to imagine. I mean, their incomes, their jobs, their personal freedoms, um, and possible catastrophic military applications could make the world a much, much more dangerous place. It's
Not to
already pretty
mention,
dangerous.
Charlie, the bubble's gonna burst. Uh, they're already, what company just said they're not doing AI slop anymore? They're just pulling back. It's failed.
Sora. Yeah,
It's going to be another, just like when the tech boom busted. It's going to bust, causing worldwide economic depression. Not to mention, as Jacob brought out, the horrible things it's doing to the environment. Using up our utilities, using up our waters, and passing the costs on to the community.
Right.
And
So one question is, if the bubble does burst, then there'll be certainly the Republicans and some of the Democrats will want to bail out financial institutions and even non-financial institutions. These private equity things and these
yeah.
non-bank banks and all the big mess that resulted from Republicans and William Jefferson Clinton working together to get us a modern finance system and keep up with Singapore and
uh,
all the other bullshit that we've been through in the last 20 years.